Welcome to Quick and Healthy Meals. And we have, welcome back again, Chef Kathy. Thank you so much for joining us today. And you guys, do we have something in store for you? Kathy, I'm going to let you take it away and let them know what you will be showing us today. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to be making my mom's lasagna. Mom got this lasagna recipe from Better Homes and Gardens, and it has not changed. It is a recipe that I've had since the 1960s. It was my very first company meal when I had someone over at my very first apartment, because it's just so easy to make and it always tastes good. And as a food service director, this recipe was so golden that I was able to size it up to 96 servings without making any changes to it, except for the basil. You know, when you upsize spices, you have to taste test, because a half a cup of basil might have been too much. And it falls within the USDA guidelines for fat servings. A serving size is only less than 400 calories. It's 373 calories.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that, Chef Kathy, because people are probably wondering, lasagna, really? Quick and healthy lasagna? Well, Chef Kathy is not a director here at the campus, but she did that in her prior work. So that's why she can speak to that. So go ahead, continue.
Okay, so there are, now I'm not my mom anymore. We have different health issues that we want to update from the recipe that was created in the 60s. So I wanted to tell you and show you some ways of being able to update your family recipes, those recipes that you always have to have at those family get-togethers. But now you can't have salt anymore. So you get tomato sauces that have no salt added. You get, you want a little bit more fiber and vegetables in your diet, you put some spinach in the meat sauce. If you, I would prefer to do gluten-free. So when you can, you get gluten-free noodles. So right now I wanted to talk about noodles, because that's out of our 4 parts of lasagna. That's the first one we're going to take care of. This recipe calls for 10 ounces of noodles. Lasagna noodles come in 16 ounces. So what do you do with the other 6 ounces? So I personally have changed my recipe so that I'll throw the entire box in. And it just has more pasta in it, a little more toothy. Then what I'm going to do today is whole wheat pasta. And it is 10 ounces, so you'll kind of see how that works out. Then the only gluten-free noodle that we could find.
Can you push that a little closer to the screen so we can see that box?
The gluten-free noodle, it's called oven-ready lasagna. You don't have to cook it, but guess what? If you were to take a look at their recommended recipe, it uses twice as much sauce than if we were going to make our own. So basically, you're not boiling the noodles. You're boiling the noodles in the sauce in the lasagna. It's like, nah.
Well, that's an option for people, though.
It's an option. If you don't want to mess with boiling with noodles, just put in another jar of marinara sauce and you're good to go. I had one experience where I did a fresh noodle and it didn't cook. So it's like, now from now on, I cook my noodles. So noodles, I also switched the ingredients of the recipe around. In the original recipe, I want you to cook the meat sauce first, and then you let it simmer for 30 minutes. For me, I can't can't get the water to boil fast enough. So by the time I get the water boiling and cook the meat and add the sauce, I'm waiting on the noodles. So I make noodles first. So one way of making sure that you've got to split all of these parts in two, because you're making 2 layers. So I'm not trying to figure out what I'm doing. I count the noodles before I go in. So these are 11 noodles. So when they're done cooking, I will, in the first layer, do 5 noodles, and the second layer, I'll do 6 noodles. So I'm going to start the noodles now. The other thing that you want to do is you want to pay attention to what the package says. For regular noodles, you cook it uncovered for 9 minutes, for 8 minutes. Regular noodles, 8 minutes. Whole wheat noodles, 9 minutes. So I was like, okay. So pay attention to your package. So my water's boiling. I'm going to add it to my pot.
You know, people are probably wondering, lasagna again, healthy. Well, you know what? A friend just told me and shared something with me about cooking. A colleague in ASI, Aaron Tapper, and you know what he said? He said, cooking affects our mental wellness. So even if it doesn't have all the right caloric intake and all that, it affects us because we use our math, we use communication, we use problem solving, and there's an outcome because there's a finished product. So there you go, you guys. Lasagna is on the menu today.
If this recipe fits in the USDA guidelines for healthy meals for children, it's golden. So the next thing is the meat sauce. And before I talked about pizza, I said I have a lot of stock items that I keep in my pantry and my freezer. Jimmy Dean is one of them. I use it for pizza. I use it for biscuits and gravy. I use it for lasagna.
Yeah.
You know, and I like it because no matter where we lived, in Colorado, Oregon, Idaho, California, it's consistent. If you were to do a sauce that was the butcher put that sausage together, it's going to taste different, you know, depending on what butcher you're at. The other aspect of it is when you look at the nutrition facts, the total fat per serving is 19 grams and the sat fat 7 grams. You always want to, the key is you want your sat fats to be under 10 grams. So even though this is pork sausage, this is okay. You know, this is doable. So to save some time, I cooked up a chub of sausage ahead of time, and I forgot. When you're cooking pasta, if you put a dollop of olive oil in it, it'll help the water from not over boiling. And when you drain it, the oil will keep the other noodles from sticking to each other. Okay, so I have cooked up a chub of Jimmy Dean sausage. So now I'm going to make the meat sauce. So I'm going to put in no salt, crushed tomatoes. Again, what I liked about
Chef Kathy, when you cooked the meat, did you put any seasonings in it, or
not yet? I'm just browned it slowly. You don't want to burn this meat.
Okay.
You don't have to use pork sausage. You can use ground turkey. You could use ground hamburger. You can, you know, cannot put in the meat at all and go with tomato sauce and spinach. You know, so this is something that you can customize to your taste.
Okay.
If you were to double check when you buy your tomatoes, the sodium content versus no salt added to tomato, you'll be shocked. So I pay extra for the no salt added. The salt is a preservative, And we get enough salt in our processed foods diet, so I'm not going there.
Okay.
So, and then the thing that I changed with my mom's recipe is that mom's recipe just asked for 15 ounces, 1 pound of tomatoes. I like more sauce, so this is 28 ounces, so it's double. It'd be like there was 2 cans. And then tomato paste. And what happens with the tomato paste is it causes the tomato sauce to bind up. So it makes it thicker. Some people don't like the taste of tomato paste. They think it's a little too acidic. So you could add to your taste about a teaspoon per can of sugar. And that helps take away this more acidic aspect of the tomato paste. Okay, so I'm gonna mix this up. And you just have to remember when we were doing this for school's food service, we were adding number 10 cans of tomato sauce,
Wow.
to make it work. And lasagna was a great thing to make for the school lunches because it used commodity ground beef and commodity cheese. So that was great. Okay, so I kind of have my sauce mixed in with the paste. Now, I thought, you know what? I've got some spinach in the freezer. I'm going to try this and see what works. It's 10 ounces of chopped spinach that you get in the freezer section.
Okay.
I would keep this on hand because I like the Knorr vegetable dip, the not healthy stuff. So what happens is that it's pretty watery because it's frozen. So what you're going to do is you're going to squeeze the spinach out, and then you've got this wad of spinach that is tough to break up because you just compacted it together. So when you put it in the meat sauce, you have to kind of like break it up so that you're not having to break it up with your utensils.
Chef Kathy, what would you suggest using that spinach opposed to fresh spinach? Would it make a difference?
Fresh spinach you would have to chop. You'd have to add bulk wise, 1 pound or 10 ounces is quite a lot. And you want it, you could do it, but for $1.79, I'd rather get the frozen.
Okay.
The other thing is that sometimes, like I had this spinach in the freezer yesterday. I pulled it out of the refrigerator. It was in the refrigerator all night long. And just now, it's defrosted. Most times, I cannot, it's still not defrosted by the time I want to use it. So I have to nuke it. So that's okay. You know, just go ahead and defrost it to the point where you can work with it. And then it goes into your meat sauce. So see, I'm stirring it in, trying to get the whole thing homogenized. So the spinach is something that I have added to my mom's recipe. The other thing that I changed to the meat sauce recipe is garlic. In that it asks for 2 cloves of garlic. I was like, that barely gets the kitchen smelling, you know. So we doubled it up. So there's 4 cloves of garlic. So that's in here. And still, you won't taste it. No. And then I think the key to this lasagna is the basil. You use 3 teaspoons or 1 tablespoon of dried basil.
Did you chop up the garlic or do you leave it whole?
Oh, it's chopped.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
yeah, it's chopped. You could probably slice it, but I dice it. Then the pepper and a little bit of salt. I find myself, even when I was making this recipe, thinking, I don't know. I think there's enough salt in the sausage and in the cheese. I'm not going to add any more salt, you know. So it's amazing how much you can delete salt. The only place that I really find that salt's necessary to have is in baking. You have to have salt in your baking to get it leavened.
Now,
Okay,
Chef Kathy, do you add salt to the water of the pasta?
no, no. I read somewhere that makes it tough. So I only put in oil and then just oil. So I'm going to turn the oven on and I'm going to let it come up to temperature and it'll kind of bubble. So my timer went off. My pasta's done. I should be draining it now. So, and I don't want to drain it in the sink because that's where my computer is. And, you know, my luck, I spill on the laptop. So I'm gonna, I have a strainer. I have my noodles. So I'm gonna just strain it right now. Okay, so out of the 4 parts of the lasagna, 2 of them are done. So now I'm gonna make the cheese sauce. Oh, cheese sauce. This is tricky. The recipe calls for 3 cups of cottage cheese. In order to make it more fat friendly, I got the fat-free cottage cheese. It also comes in 4% and then whole milk. And also, it's by weight. There are cups that are 8 ounces and then there's weight. And they're not necessarily the same. When I measured this out earlier, this is 3 cups. You would think at 32 ounces it would be 4 cups, but it measures 3 cups. So we're going to use an entire container of cottage cheese. Then we are trying to stay away from cholesterol now. So instead of eggs, I'm going to use egg beaters.
Okay.
And 1 egg equals 1/4 of a cup of egg beaters. So that goes in there. Found that I like egg beaters as a brand because it's yellow. And they have egg substitute at Costco and it's white. It just doesn't look the same, you know, so I like the egg beaters.
The visual is important.
Yeah, and then 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese. The Parmesan cheese is also something that I always keep on hand, but I've noticed that if I keep it in the refrigerator and I don't use it enough, it'll get moldy. So we keep the Parmesan cheese in the freezer.
Oh.
So just like the mozzarella cheese, I will buy 5-pound bags of mozzarella cheese at Costco and they'll repackage them into 1-pound bags. And that's what I'll have for
You have it on hand when you
Yeah, pull out the cheeses I needed. Okay, and then I need pepper in here.
Is that a teaspoon of pepper?
Just regular black pepper.
Okay.
So now I'm going to mix it together. That's my cheese mixture. And I'm ready to go. Okay, so this takes a 9 by 13 pan. If it's smaller, it's not going to fit. So try to use a cake pan or something else that's an equivalent of size. The other aspect of this is you get in you need to spray it. So it's like, I'm the cook, I don't do the dishes. That's my background from food service. I have other people who do the dishes for me. But then I hear about it if the dishes are really bad. So make sure you spray. Okay, so now we're going to assemble. We're going to put it in the order that we're going to assemble it in. So meats last, then the cheese, the 2 different kinds of cheeses, and the noodles. We're going to put down 5 noodles for each layer. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, this is a trick. This cheese goes next. These are wonderful tools. In order to keep consistent with the recipes that you make every day, one way of doing that is measuring and making sure that you measure equally. This scoop is a 1/3 scoop. It's also called a number 12 scoop. And the reason why it's called another number 12 scoop is because there's a 12 that's on the metal part that scoops out the food, because 12 scoops fit into a quart, okay? This scoop is wonderful. It's called a number 40 scoop because there's 40 scoops that fit into a quart. This is perfect for cookies. It makes perfect cookie size. And meatballs. So what we're going to do to make things easier is we're going to take the 1/3 cup scoop and we're going to mix it into, we're going to scoop it up. And this is how we divide up the
mixture?
Cheese sauce. And then we spread it out with this tool. I think this one's Pampered Chef. It's not like a knife in that it's got this little cant to it. So it really makes things easier to get down to and spread. It's also, we use it a lot for frosting. Okay, and then the next ingredient is the cheese. And so that you can know exactly what a half is, sometimes so that I just take the angst out of it, I'll just measure 8 ounces. So I know I've got to take this 8 ounces and spread it on my dish. So that's the first layer. Now, then we get to the meat. So one way of doing the meat is that it's a circle. So you kind of even it out as much as possible. And then you divide it in half. This is where the tomato paste has been lovely. You divide it in half. So you kind of see there's that trench there. And then you take the smaller scoop and you dab it onto the top of the cheese. And the reason why you do that instead of just dumping it in the dish is because sometimes the sauce will pick up the cheese that's underneath it, and you want it to be layered. So by putting it in dabs on the casserole or on the lasagna, you have control over how it's going to look. Okay, and then you take, what do I do with my knife? Oh well. And then you just spread the meat dish on. The meat sauce over it.
Okay, I'm so glad that you have one already prepared.
Yeah. So here's the second layer. And when you get motivated, you can move kind of fast. Oh, here it is. Okay.
So for those who have never made lasagna before, some people are afraid because they think it's just so daunting. There's so many things to do. You've made it actually look pretty easy. So very good.
Yeah, it is easy. And, you know, one serving size of this lasagna is 16 bucks at Olive Garden. You know, this stuff is, this is wonderful. So my mom would make this lasagna. She's 85 now, and we don't make her make the lasagna anymore. So somebody else will pick up that duty. But that's still the go-to. Mom, will you make your lasagna, please? Right. You know, so.
That's right.
So in the Pierce household, that's what we like the best. Okay, so one of the things that I did want to talk about, and we've got a few minutes left. So here I'm going to dunk because it is on the top, and see how it has filled all the way to the rim of the pan?
Yeah.
This is full. Okay, so this is your lasagna. You cook it for 375 degrees for 30 minutes, or until it comes out at 165 degrees. I have one done. This is how it looks.
Very nice.
And part of what I wanted to talk about is that when we get back to campus, and this is cut into 12 parts, you can take this lasagna and you can make it, see, 1, 2, 3, 4, freeze it, and then put it in your lunch and bring it in to microwave. So when I freeze food, I would put it in a container. I would put today's date, so that's 9/16, because different foods can stay in the freezer for different lengths of time. And it's easier for me to go, when did I put it in versus when I know I have to put it out. So I'm going to take this. This is a serving size.
That looks delicious.
This is 400 calories. That's it. And then it fits into this dish, and then you can freeze it, and you can do 12 of these for one batch, and then you got lunch for 12. So
you've got our viewers saying it looks delicious. It looks wonderful. Wow. And you know what? it was quick and easy because you assembled it, you did it all in that 30 minutes, and then you just set it in the oven and forget it, and then you come back and it's done. So there you go. Thank you so much, Chef Kathy, for joining us today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Stay tuned. Come back next week. We have VP Forges in store for you next week. So please come back and visit us. Thank you, Chef Kathy. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Now I gotta put the other one.
All right. Thank you so much, Kathy. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much.